So now whatever we say will record like a video.
And that's also when we go.
Yeah. Hello everyone and welcome to the first slightly different LItbashing, because this one is Rulesbashing, where we're going to look at the Legions Imperialis rules and see if we can do some manoeuvring and changing and not necessarily making it better, not homebrewing as such. We want to be completely Games Workshop legal here, but we do want to use some of our existing miniatures as probably not what they're supposed to be. So consider this a sort of proxy list, if you will. I'm also joined, you might have heard me, by my little assistant here, who's doing his own painting. You can say hello?
Hello.
What are you painting today? You don't know? What did you tell me you were going to paint? Strangers on the internet, probably. I hear it's a really good idea to show strangers on the internet pictures of your children, so that's all good. Anyway, we'll see what he gets up to during this video, and then we'll see if his painting is better than whatever I work out here. So we're going to look at some of the most retro miniatures I own, because I started epic scale miniing back when, God, I must have been 14, which was 20 years ago now. And so I've got an awful lot of very, very old models that I'd like to show you now. I want to know if it's possible to use my epic Tyranids from the late 90s in Legions Imperialis. And the idea is that I want to see if we can fit every single Tyranid unit into one of these sections on either Legions Astartes or Solar Auxilia, so you can run basically a proxy list using these models. I will be putting the unedited version of this for anyone who likes cute/annoying child voices on the Patreon, probably just on the free tier, just for anyone who fancies it, but I won't clog YouTube with it. Anyway, where was I? Yes, so I want to make sure every single Tyranid unit has an equivalent so that we can proxy a whole army of Tyranids, either representing a splinter fleet that came ahead of the First Tyrannic War, that one of the Space Marine legions happened upon in its conquest of the galaxy, or just if we want to scale it forward to the 41st millennium and play some Warhammer 40,000 Legion Imperialis rather than Horus Heresy Legion Imperialis. So that's what we're going to be doing today. So let's do the easy ones first. The absolute easiest one is, where do we put our High Tyrants? Well, a High Tyrant is the only HQ that we've got in the classic list, so that he can go up here. He can represent either one of the teams. I might have a second High Tyrant dotted around. That would be easier. I do. So we can put one each there and one each there. And that shows us that HQ is sorted. I'm only using the already released rules. I know that probably some of these could be jet bikes or outriders that we haven't had a release date or rules for yet. So these are just what we have rules for and can use now. Obviously, it's open to interpretation. It's all my decision of how we adapt these rules. But this is what we're going for. You might also notice I'm doing this on paper when this could easily be a PowerPoint presentation, but I figured the whole kind of conceit of my channel is doing things properly with your hands. So seeing as I've got all these super retro minis painted in 14-year-old me style, let's get them on this little bit of paper, and then I'll give you a nice graphic at the end for any of you budding Tyranid players who want to use your minis in Legions Imperialis. So let's look at our next unit, and it's a fairly easy one because we've got gargoyles. Now, gargoyles are troops with wings, and the closest thing we have to troops with wings are troops with jump packs. Assault Marines. Sorted. Next, we have Carnifex, the Screamer Killer before the Screamer Killer. So, where does he go? He is bigger than lots of the other monsters in the game. Realistically, he should be a dreadnought. He was designed back when every army basically had an analogue of each other to be the dreadnought equivalent. He's well bigger than a Contemptor. Contemptors are just about a thumbnail tall, and he is bigger than that, including these big spiky things. He's also very close combat orientated, which means to me, I think Leviathan Dreadnought. There's nothing really on this side that marries up. Let's look at our next little dudes. We've got Lictors. Now we have a choice here. Lictors can represent several models per base, or they could be individual monsters. The problem with Tyranid monsters is they're all, silly as it sounds, quite humanoid. So we can't really feasibly call these tanks. So we're looking at anything that represents, I don't know, something sort of fast and assassin-y. Big problems here that I can already see is that we don't have any assassins yet. Now we will probably get some kind of Agents of the Imperium upgrade at some point, but it could be years and years down the line. So when it comes to it, these will probably be individual assassins for that list. In absence of that, we have to look elsewhere. Where could they go? They can't feasibly be air support. However speedy they are, they're not flying. They could realistically be Ogryns. Ogryns are quite big and only 3 to a base, so these are quite big. They could feasibly be Ogryns. Is there anywhere else they could feasibly be? They could, I suppose, feasibly be Sentinels. I suppose Sentinels have got big legs and Lictors have got big arms. Is there anywhere else that Lictors could possibly be? I tell you what, because we've counted him as a Contemptor, so we haven't got 2 Lictors over on the Soli Auxilia side, I reckon this could be our Contemptor. He's not far off height-wise because of how varied the scale was back in the days of 90s Epic. Contemptor is feasible, not ideal, but in the absence of assassins, that's where I'm going to put him. Let's have a look what else we've got. Here's a fun one that's actually quite easy, and it's a unit that we don't have in 40k anymore. But these are Malefactors. We have Maleceptors, which are almost completely unrelated, but these are Malefactors, and they were the transport tank. And Tyranids haven't really got a transport tank anymore, which is a shame, because I think they would be quite fun. But the advantage of that is we know where they go. You're back. Got clean hands? That's good. They could be transport, and they could be either kind of transport. Both pretty good. We have Gaunts. Now, Gaunts are obviously core. What kind of core is the question? Personally, I think I might break these off because these are on kind of not very standard bases. Again, Epic wasn't the most standards of systems. You had square bases, you had round bases. They could be core for either of them, so I'm going to represent one in there and one in there. But as I say, when I rebase these for Legions Imperialis, I will probably mix up the Gaunts like old-fashioned styly. And what have we got next? Let's look at some of our ones that are tanks. We've got 2 that are back in the game, made out of the same kit now. Got the old Exocrines, and we've got the old Harrispexes. Harrispex, however you want to pluralise this. Now, what do we do with these 2 friends? Big gun, heavy tank. No guns, big choppy swords. Both about the same size. I don't know. These feasibly could be any of the tanks. So I'm going to put them there for now as representing any of the tanks. As long as we're consistent when we go through, I reckon we'll be all right. Who else have we got? Who haven't we used yet? Aha! Gene Stealers. Gene Stealers. Where could they go? They're very close combat, and there isn't really any close combat option in our list. Possibly Ogryns? I would say Assault, but they don't fly, and we've got Gargoyles, which are much better. I'm thinking they're going to be just representative of another support detachment. It could be missile launchers or plasmas. It could be flamers or Velatarii. Velatarii are probably the best because they've got the axes. So I'll give it to them first. I think Velatarii do win out there. So we've got possible Ogryns, possible Velatarii. We are pretty much there with all the standard units, except for our classic Tyranid warriors. Now, Tyranid warriors famously are the Terminator equivalents, but I think these definitely are best represented 3 for 5 as Terminators. Let's have a look at other units I've got. It should be noted, I don't have every unit, so I'll have to go through and see if I can roll any units that I'm missing afterwards. Right, let's crank out the big guns. Oh, most certainly a Titan. The Hierophant, most certainly one step below the Titan, probably a Warlord. The Herodule. And also we've got the Dominatrix, who is a unit I desperately want to see back in the game, because it's just so cool and so different from all the other Tyranids. It's just such a chunky beast. None of these long spindly spider legs. So I would like to see him back. I've only got one of these guys, but I just want to make it clear that he could easily be a heavy flyer from either team. As it stands, there is only heavy flyers on the Astartes team. So he's there kind of by default for now. Now, as I said, I don't have every classic Tyranid unit. Notably, I haven't got the Trigon, which could be another heavy tank. I haven't got the Dactylus, which with its 2 kind of throwy things probably would be a Derideo, because, you know, they've got the 2 arms and can hurl batteries. So I think if I did have a Dactylus, I'd put it as a Derideo Dreadnought. So I might just scribble that down here to remind myself. For the graphic later. What else do we have? We have... Now, I don't have any of the real models of this, but I do have a little Zoanthrope I made out of a Ripper and some green stuff. It brings back memories. So Zoanthropes could feasibly be Sentinels. That's probably the best shout at the moment. But also Plasma Gun. They could be Plasma Guns, couldn't they? Plasma represented, the psychic powers represented by the Plasma. I'll put them in Sentinels for now, but if we end up on this side, that Plasma is where I'll put them. I've also got some that never got models, again, through my conversions. I made very silly little Raveners. But again, I think they're just kind of generic support from either team at the moment. So I won't include them because, again, they're not a real unit. I've added those after the fact. And I think that's all the classic epic Tyranid units. We've got the big guns, we've got the slightly smaller guns, and we've got the regular dudes. So seeing as anyone can take Knights and Titans, let's take those away. And let's look at the ones we've got left. Of these 2, it looks like Astartes are winning out slightly, which is a shame because swarming small guys kind of represents Solar Auxilia, Guard, that kind of thing more. But simply by virtue of how many options there are available, I think Astartes wins out. So this, I am going to go that this is going to be counts as Astartes' army, which seems very silly to say, being Tyranids. But yeah, that's what we're going to go for. So let's look at the ones we have. This is on both sides. We don't need to worry about that. This is on both sides. Don't have to worry about that. The Lataris are good. It's not as good on this side, but they can represent plasma guns or missile launchers. And we'll just cross that bridge when we come to it. Probably plasma, considering their claws are kind of not long range. But, you know, some of them can have implant attacks and acid sprays back in day. So that's on both sides. That's on both sides. That represents generic teams. And melters, which means they'll be missile launchers. Psychic missiles. Zoanthropes will represent psychic missiles. Gene Stealers will represent melters with their choppiness. We've got 2 of these. I suppose Predator makes sense for this. Sikaran makes sense for this, and we just don't have heavy armor, which is really annoying because we need heavy armor to make a feasible detachment. So I will have to think of something to beat the heavy armor. Possibly, although it's big, Dominatrix can be the Kratos. And then we've got Herodule as a Warhound, Hierophant as a Reaver. And I think I'm okay with that. We've got Dactylis Trigon to deal with. And we've got the actual Zoanthrope models that I don't own. And I think that's it. I think that's all our units. Cool. That's what I'm going to go for. I'm going to go away and edit this down slightly. I will put the unedited version with all my random thoughts and occasional interjections from the budding young artist. This was his second piece of work. Personally, I don't think it was a patch on his first piece, but you know, I'm always a sucker for an artist's early work. But yeah, there we have most of the units represented, including the Hero Titans, and most of those units represented well. Gene Stealers aren't great, so Melter support isn't an ideal match. It really is a shame that Space Marines can't take just one unit of Velatari. But the rest all make a lot of sense, along with their original intent. Big tanky beasts are big tanks, small blaster units are small blaster units, etc. For me, this works pretty well as a proxy list. It allows you to make fluffy combinations, like including a couple of Terminator, Warrior, upgrades in a tactical detachment, Termagants providing support, Synapse, Red Naught drop pod lictors into the backfield representing their deep strike, etc. For the models we haven't used yet, I reckon we take advantage of the missing Vanguard units and use our Hormagaunts. Fast hitter units as Outriders, fast hitter units. For the hovering units, the speeders and jet bikes, I suggest representing these by using tunneling units, Trigons for speeders, and Raveners, which never had official models but have had homebrew epic rules for such a long time. Most people have their own kit-bashed versions, if you played epic Tyranids in the last 10 years, as jet bikes, hovering or tunneling over or under terrain. In terms of which legion to run the bugs in, well, that depends on your style. Hard-hitting close combat word bearers would be a shout. No, that's not what I mean. Try again. In terms of which legion to run the bugs in, well, that depends on your style. Hard-hitting close combat world eaters would be a shout. You could run Gene Stealers as tacticals instead of Termagants and play with Lictonauts and run an Alpha Legion. Or you could represent the tyrannification of the flora and fauna using Death Guard to poison the earth while your bugs move safely through the cover. Lots of the rules, with a little imagination, can represent your hive fleet pretty accurately. I'll be recovering and restoring my old bugs into a usable force as a foil for my Marines, so I'll keep you posted on that painting project as we go. Thank you all for watching. Remember to like and subscribe. Thank you again to all my lovely Patreons who continue to be the sexiest people in the world. But most importantly, peace and love, and keep on LItbashing.